All right, welcome back to the Silm Film Script Discussion, Season 3, Episode 7, Part 4? 4? Yeah, 4. Okay, awesome. Thanks, Marie. Anyway, so we are making our way through Act 1. We're talking about the second scene of Act 1, which is Finarfin walking on the scene of Feanor and Fingolfin arguing about the kinslaying. It's going to culminate in Fingolfin breaking his sword. That is something I think he should do publicly.
Mm-hmm.
I think that...
Can Finarfin walk in on this conversation if it's aboard a ship?
Yes. Because if it's like in a cabin on the ship,
okay,
all he has to do is like he's boarding the ship and he's walking towards the cabin and there's people on the deck, maybe like the sun, maybe like Mithros and Fingon are there, and they're like giving each other awkward looks.
Avoiding each other awkwardly?
Yeah, which would work because the last we saw of all these people, more or less, was...
How did Fingon get on the ship? I mean, is Feanor just letting anyone come on? I mean...
Apparently for this meeting, this is an official meeting, so Fingon is part of Fingolfin's entourage, and Mithros is part of Feanor's entourage, and they're waiting while there's a meeting going on. So it's like an official business thing.
Is Finrod or Galadriel going to be there too?
I would say that Galadriel. I mean, I don't know. Does Finarfin bring anybody with him, and if so, whom?
Well, I think we have to figure out what Finarfin's reason for being on the ship is before we answer that.
Right. Well,
because it's obvious why the other two brothers are there. Is he there just to like be part of the conversation and keep the peace, or like what's
he might be? Well, he might be. He might know that he might have. Okay, so he's showing up to this meeting as one of the sons of Finwë.
Yes.
Right.
Is he starting his?
But I think he's showing up to say, look, I am not okay with the stuff that's happening. Yeah. Like, this is not cool. Right. This is no good.
Right. Yeah, he needs to voice very early in the episode the idea of we should cut this out, cut our losses, turn back, redo. We made a mistake. Time to repent. Like, all of his arguments need to be pretty clearly his own. The question is he going to say that in front of Feanor?
That he's not going to bring his kids because all of them want to keep going.
Right. Yes.
Yeah, and that's where he's going. If his whole reason for being here is to do his last-ditch attempt to reach Feanor, kids know him for that.
Definitely don't bring Galadriel.
Right.
Finrod along depends on whether Finrod at this point is certain he wants to continue on or very conflicted and might be going and maybe leaning in Finarfin's direction.
I think Finarfin thinks he can convince Finrod to go back with him.
Mm-hmm.
So
Finrod has a reason to go back. Amaria is in Valinor. The rest of his kids, I think he knows, are pretty gung-ho to go forward.
Yeah.
So yes, I think if he only brings Finrod with him to this meeting, that kind of shows Finarfin's viewpoint and also introduces Finrod as, oh, we should start paying attention to this guy.
Right.
Yeah. Definitely Galadriel invited to the conversation.
I would not bring Galadriel to a meeting with Feanor if you were going to challenge Feanor. I just wouldn't do that.
Yeah. That sounds like a...
Well, I mean, if you want to start a shouting match, that's fine.
I was more thinking, at this point, bloodbath, maybe?
Right. Given the things that have happened recently...
I wouldn't put her on that ship, but...
I wouldn't put her in the same room as Feanor, not even a little bit. So... Right. I do think, however, that we need to get the perspective of Finarfin's kids in this episode. We definitely need to make sure that we address
just not in this meeting.
I think that's like an Act 2 issue, I think.
When he's talking to his kids about, I am going to go home, please come with me, and they're like, no.
Yeah, that conversation will happen, and we'll see Galadriel try to talk Finrod into going forwards. He's trying to talk him into going back. So we kind of see Finrod's choices as well.
Okay, so Fingolfin is angry about the kinslaying, but he's still for going forward. He's maybe trying to to convince Feanor to take a less active role or to stop making decisions without him, maybe?
Yes. He said, his argument should be, look, I said I would follow you, but you need to talk to me first before you do this stuff.
Right.
Like, I'm not going to.
I think in this scene, that's his point of view.
Right. We're going to change it later.
Like, yeah, and Feanor's like, I'm king and you're going to obey me, boy.
Yeah. Feanor is pretty much like, since when do I need to check in with you, and why you're not in charge? You're not the boss of me and all that stuff, because it's Feanor, and there's no way he's going to.
No one is the boss of Feanor.
Exactly. Even Mandos, even Manwë, even Iluvatar probably is not the boss of Feanor. Which
and we can put the line from Feanor about Fingolfin still thinking that he's king of the Noldor, and Fingolfin doesn't outright deny it, and maybe have Finarfin step in and say, look, we done messed up.
Yeah.
Right?
It's like, so Finarfin should say, that's not really the issue here. Who cares which one of us in this room is king? What matters is what we do. And we've
that's a perfect line, because if he says that, Feanor's gonna be like, "Oh, you think you're king, do you?" Like, because that's clearly gonna send that message to Feanor's.
This is not exactly, that's not at all what Finarfin meant, and Feanor takes it so wrong.
Right, exactly.
Right. That's why I suggested it. But the other reason is Finarfin is the one who's going to be king of the Noldor and Valinor after all this, and Fingolfin will be king of the Noldor in Middle Earth. And Feanor's acting like he's king of the Noldor till he dies. So, more or less king of the Noldor. But Finarfin's focused on what really matters, which is, who cares which one of us puts a crown on our head? What matters is that we lead our people in the right direction. And right now, we are leading them to destruction. Can we please not?
Yeah. Now, we talked on the thread about what is it that leads up to Finarfin's decision, and does he... Is he looking for? He already wants to go back in response to the kinslaying, and then he finally is able to go back because the Doom of the Noldor persuades enough of his people to go with him that he has someone to lead back? Or is he still willing to go forward until he hears the Doom of Mandos?
No, we decided that there's a decision point for him after the kinslaying, where he realizes this needs to stop. And he's trying to get as many people as he can to decide to come back with him. But he realizes that most people want to go forward. So he's trying to make those inroads and think, okay, well, I'm going to take the position of, let me see if I can turn the ship around. And then the Doom of Mandos is the Doom of Mandos is, I'm out of time. Like, that's it. Like, time's up. You guys are in or out. I can't.
Right.
No longer continue on with you, hoping to bring more back.
Yeah.
So
the point at which he has a critical mass of other followers who back.
And that happens too. Suddenly there's more people who agree with him. So he's like, all right, this is it. This is the time. This is the moment. Let's go. But we didn't want to make it look like the Doom of Mandos scared him, so he turned around and ran back to Valinor.
Right. Right. We want him to show that this is something that he felt was the right thing to do before that.
We want to show him as a leader and not just reacting to events. So, yeah.
Which is, I mean, even if he was just doing it in response to the Doom of Noldor, it would still be the braver route, because he's going deliberately to face the wrath of the Valar and repel.
Oh, I'm not saying that that's a cowardly action. Facing the doom that the Valar give them could be quite dangerous. It's that it would maybe come across looking like cowardice.
Hakan said.
If we haven't shown his background of where he was. So that's why it's important that we establish all this before Mandos shows up. That's all.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
So I think that the sword breaking itself doesn't necessarily have to happen in that very scene, because I don't see how it happens logistically. I think that should be a public moment, and I don't see Fingolfin being able to do that, walk out onto the ship and make that a public moment, because there's not enough people there.
Right.
Well, I mean, stand on the ship. Is the ship anchored on the coast, and can he be seen by a bunch of people on the shore?
That's possible.
It's like,
this particular ship should be really close to the shore because we've just established that everybody seems to have gotten on it. So
Right. Yeah. No, that's true. Okay.
yeah.
So maybe have him walk out to the gangplank.
But like the
Deck.
rails and like this stage, and address the Noldor, and they can see and hear him. He's standing on a great height, and they're all, I mean,
Yeah. Well, I mean, Noldor have got to know that these three guys are in a meeting on this ship, and a bunch of them are probably gathered around to see what's going on.
Right.
Yeah.
And it would be the flagship, it would be the biggest ship because it's the one Feanor invited them to. So yeah, like it's a big deal. But the logistics of breaking the sword, I mean, how is he going to do that?
Well,
wrong.
Well, he could. Well, first thing, what you could do. Okay, if I were going to try to break a sword in his shoes, I could conceivably brace it on the deck or on the rail and stomp on it, and that could break it.
It's a short kepesh, so it's not
right. It's not a super long sword, I don't think. So yeah. Say again.
He'd have to be bent over to do it. He won't be standing up straight.
That's true. That's true.
But that's the best way to get leverage, other than breaking it over your knee, which would.
Yeah, I would not break a sword over my knee.
Yeah, I mean, he could put his foot. Well, is he in armor? If he's in armor and his knee is armored, he could put his foot on the rail, put the sword on his knee, and bend it until that would hurt, but it would establish that he's really tough.
Well, are you saying that, like, is he using his hands to do this? Because that it would just bend.
Okay, so he could put the sword on the rail, the end of the sword on the rail, so that everyone on shore can see him. Put his foot on top of the sword, on top of the rail, and then wrench it and snap it.
That's possible. Or he could grab a hammer. Like, I mean,
I was kind of looking for if he was using tools or his foot or a rock, or like, I was just trying to get a visual of what he's doing so we know if it looks stupid.
Right. Yeah. Okay. You know what he could do? Okay. So if these are the ships that I had like thought about them having, where there's like those wing masts that can go off to the side, which only works if the wind is behind you, right? But the wings are folded, right? And there's pulleys that work that. He could put the point of the sword in the pulley, and you could easily snap it under those circumstances. And he could do it standing on the rail.
Okay. Okay, so this is a good reason for him to do this on the deck of the ship, because the pulleys are right there, and this would be a very visible thing for everybody on the shore. And he can very pointedly be talking about the people behind him without mentioning them by name.
Yeah. Not mentioning any names. Feanor.
Exactly.
Okay.
Okay, so I think that logistically, visually, whatever works for how he can publicly do that without having to be part of the conversation.
He can say, like, the breaking the sword is a symbolic gesture, right? But he can say to the people, "Never again will I raise my blade against our kin, against the elves."
Yeah.
Which that's easy enough for him to do.
Yes.
And then he throws the shards into the sea.
Right. No, because he needs them.
Well, he's got to, because this has got to reforge Ringel. This is Ringel. Or will be Ringel.
Well, wait a minute. Okay, Ringil is a longer sword, and he
exactly. It's going to be completely reforged.
Yes,
but he has to at least have the hilt or something.
Is going to be added to it.
Yes, absolutely. He's going to.
I like the symbolism of him throwing the shards in the sea and getting a whole new sword.
I'll tell you why this was. I do like that as well, but I'll tell you why that this particular line of thought was considered, and that's because this is the first sword made by the elves, right?
Yeah.
And Melkor guides Fingolfin in the making of it, and the irony of that being part of the sword, which Fingolfin uses to wound him, is delicious.
I like. Okay, yeah.
So he has to at least keep the hilt.
Yeah.
The metal is very good quality.
Yes.
It's fine quality metal.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, the reason why the idea of him
or a shard could. a piece or a shard could break off and go into the sea, so he loses it, and he only has like the 2 big chunks left, and like whatever shattered in the middle is gone.
Yeah.
Like we could have a symbolic loss of part of the sword here.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But so most of it needs to go home with Fingolfin.
This sword is half of Ringgit.
Yes.
All right. So
yes.
So Fingolfin goes outside to the deck of the ship.
Jumps on the rail.
Jumps on the rail.
Very dramatically and publicly.
Oh, he's doing the whole thing where he's grabbing onto one of the
yeah.
What are those called? The lanyards, the yeah, there's a word in that rope. Yeah.
He's an elf.
I don't know. You just call them lines on ships, right? All ropes are lines.
He doesn't need to hold on to balance. He's an elf. He can balance fine on the rail of a top.
That's true, but it looks really cool, you know?
Ta-da! Here I am.
Probably even though he's not a mariner.
What's that?
It looks even cooler if he's just balancing with no handholds, even though he's not a mariner and doesn't have sea level.
Yeah.
We'll leave that to the director to figure out exactly how best to frame him in the scene. I mean,
we build the actual ship, and the director's like, "Hey, you know what would be really cool?"
Oh yeah, and then get the actor to actually do that, and you have to take 400 takes because he keeps falling in the water.
Yeah. At which point they're like, "Guess what you're gonna do? You're gonna hold on to this rope."
No, he's clearly wearing a wire. That actor is clearly wearing a wire.
Definitely.
There's no way you're doing that.
We have an entire semi-truck filled with replacement costumes so that when you dunk one in the ocean, we can quickly replace it.
Yeah. But you do run out of time eventually to get a shot sometimes. But
okay, yeah, fighters.
Well,
but yes, but this is a fantasy project.
You're not gonna.
So we can do whatever we want.
And also, it's at night. This is all night shoots.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Well, I mean, you've heard actors talk about things they've had to do for big budget films, and I think it was Johnny Depp, Pirates of the Caribbean. They're like, okay, you're gonna balance on this beam that's way up in the air, and we're going to have the rain machines on, and you're in a whirlpool, so everything's moving, and you're going to have a sword fight with a guy while you're doing this. He's like, okay, sure, that sounds like a thing that can happen.
And yeah. Did we lose me?
I think I'm here.
All right.
I just got suddenly quiet.
So
it's rare.
All right, we need another scene for this act. The thing with Bulldog, they really only want one scene, which I think we can just save that towards the end where we're wrapping everything up to show what he's doing off in the east. Yeah. It's not. There's no story there, so I don't think we need to really do much.
Introduce
with
that. Yeah.
Yeah. I do think that we should go back to Círdan, because if he's the protagonist of our Balerion storyline, we need to show him in the first act. So if we go back to Círdan at Eglorest.
Before or after Baldur arrives?
Yeah. Way before. He's not going to get there for another few acts.
This is Eglorest at peace.
Sort of. Well, Círdan knows that the jig is up soon.
Yeah, because he's had some sort of dream warning or something.
Well, he knows about the existence of the orcs. He knows that there's an army of orcs out there somewhere. So he knows that things are not as safe as they once thought.
This is where we see the discussion of the Elves of Eglorest figuring out how they're going to handle.
I think that we should have an arrival from Doriath bringing a not enough amount of arms for the Falavrum to use. It's not enough. It's not even close to enough. There's maybe 50
suits of armor.
Yeah, 50 suits of mail. Yeah. And
with some bows,
right, and maybe 100 bows and 1,000 arrows or something. It's not enough.
What's the population of Eglorest? 1,000 at least.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's not even close to enough. Because
you have hatchets and bows, don't you? And fish spears.
Yes, but nothing. They don't have a lot of metal weapons.
And the point is that they know at this point that the orcs are armored
with metal.
well. Like
Yes.
that it takes a real weapon to get through an orc's protection. So he thinks an army of orcs is coming. He doesn't know about the wolves yet.
Yeah,
Right.
I mean, I think an antler-pointed fish spear could penetrate mail.
Mail, yes. If
a
it's
stone hatchet, I don't know.
yeah. Well, the thing is that the orcs aren't wearing like actual like mail. They're wearing like a scale armor kind of thing.
Right. But
all right. Which arrows don't do as well. Again, cutting weapons do a lot better against scale armor. Because there's places for you to get at. But piercing weapons don't do as well as they do against actual mail.
Well, the nice thing about scale armor is that it's more rigid than mail, and so there are larger gaps for like armpits and
right. Right.
Well, they're gonna have
they have weaknesses, but
for the groin, but there will be armpits and
yeah. Well, like Bellic manages with his relatively primitive weapons. He manages to kill enough of them for a small troop of orc deserters to take off.
You can shoot them in the eye from like 200 yards. So.
Yeah, right. So like you can do that
until they get closer.
Right. Right. Anyway, so timer just went off. So why don't we take a break real quick?
Okay.
If you're watching us live, hang in there. We'll be back in a bit. If you're watching this in the future, definitely like and share the videos if you like and want to share them. If you haven't yet, feel free to subscribe. Check out the links below. Get information on the Silm Film Project, the Signum University, Mythgard Academy /Institute, and Mythmoot 5 coming up June 21st to the 24th. It's going to be awesome. See you in a minute.